Take one. As we've been looking and reading at in the book of James, we come to the 5th chapter, the last chapter, and it begs me to ask a question. What is a needed characteristic for the Christian faith today? In James 5, we read about patience, but to me, there's really a great need for hope. Hope for change in the world. And not just any change, but a yearning for spiritual renewal. Spiritual renewal within the church, within our communities, within our country, and throughout the whole world. Yet, we might think, short of a divine intervention, how could that possibly take place? So instead, our thinking usually collapses into minimal expectations. Let's set the bar low enough that we can actually reach it. And we somehow collapse into some sort of manageable solution that we can do this as the church and not really reach out too far. But what happens with that is it becomes an intrusion of a certain infection. That infection of self. And yes, sometimes that infection of self might manifest itself physically within the sickness that we might have. But too often it manifests itself spiritually in that thing we call sin. So yes, sometimes as the church, we are limited because we are disabled by our physical illness. We're racked with pain, and somehow that gets us focused in on me, and I can't do anything else until I take care of me. But sometimes it happens spiritually as we are burdened by guilt and as we are consumed with bitterness and anger, that somehow we just want to keep that other side away from us and not get any worse than what we are. So we become entwined in our suffering. We become entrapped by the evils that surround us. And so our thinking and our acting becomes oriented to self. We just want a shelter. We want a shelter to keep us protected, to keep us away, to keep us from the elements that might harm and destroy us. We want to shelter ourselves with our own reason, with our own speech, the way we react to things, and within our own strength. In fact, it even affects our own prayers, that somehow we keep a certain privacy to it. And as we do these things, it becomes a matter of self-preservation, a matter of survival. Well, in our church culture, within our community cultures today, within our world, we've lost a sense of porch. I think back to when I was growing up and watching the Andy Griffith Show. And there would be Andy and Barney and Aunt Bee on the front porch, and as people would go by, they would engage in conversation. In fact, they would join them on the porch for a time of relationship. We've lost that in our world today. We've lost that in the church today. Instead, we set up ourselves with the fenced-in backyard. And not only do we fence in the backyards, but we erect a deck, so we can even raise and elevate ourselves above everyone else. And so what we want to do is we want to have this shelter where this privacy of self secludes from the evils of the world, from the things that are outside, but it also secludes us from relationship. But it enables us that we can remain secret. But what happens within our lives is that secrecy corrodes us and our relationships. Ultimately, it leads to secrecy corrupts. That's the first take. Next, take two.